Hi everyone and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'll be cooking up a feast for my husband's birthday, so join me as I spend the day in the kitchen. I'll be making a Mediterranean chicken stew and his favourite, a chocolate cake. Now normally in June my husband's birthday is celebrated outside with a barbecue or a pizza, but today it's raining and raining and raining, and it's just a really funny day because we're in the middle of school exams, there are concerts, there's all sorts of things going on, and it's a pretty stressful time of year. So I'm trying to make it simple today, but still have something a little bit special for him to have when he comes home from work. So you probably noticed my rather unorthodox way of breaking up the chocolate. I leave it in the packet and bash it on the work surface until it's in small pieces. Then I put it in the saucepan with the butter, in this case dairy-free butter, and let it melt together slowly. So this video is sped up, it'll be slower than this. And you'll end up with a silky, smooth, delicious mixture. While the chocolate mixture is cooling down, I'm going to get on with the chicken stew. So I start by slicing some onions. And if you'd like this recipe, it should be up on the blog, candleinthekitchen.com, in just a few days. Now, one thing that I do try and do when I'm cooking, especially when I'm cooking several things at once, is to try and keep on top of the mess. So I'll throw away the vegetable peels, and I'll just give things a wipe down as I go, so that at the end of the day I don't have a huge amount to do. So when all of the onions are nicely sliced up, I add some lardons or bacon bits to a pan, and I'm just going to let them fry down until they render all of their fat, and we're going to use the fat afterwards to fry the rest of the vegetables. So you can see here that the bacon is already starting to release its fat, and all that will be great for the onions and the garlic a little bit later on. And while the bacon is cooking, I'm just preparing some garlic, so I'm peeling 3 cloves of garlic here. You can see here how much fat has been released from the bacon, and that's just great for frying the vegetables in. So the onions are almost done here. They are soft, but they're not quite brown yet. And right at the end, I add the garlic. I like to do this because the garlic has tendency to burn if you cook it for too long. And also we get that really strong garlicky flavour if it's not cooked for too long. As soon as I've added the garlic, I turn the heat off, give it a stir and remove it all from the pan because we're now going to fry the chicken. I'm actually going to use duck fat to fry the chicken. Now duck fat is really good for you. It can be heated to quite a high heat, so it's great for frying meat. I just reserved it from some duck breasts that I cooked this weekend. I put it in a jar in the fridge, and we'll be using that for the next several days now. So I really encourage you, if you are cooking duck at any point, or goose even, keep the fat. It's really, really good for you and a great way to use a different kind of fat to fry. Now I'm just browning the chicken thighs. So as you can see, I've only put 3 or 4 in the pan, and that's just so that the pan isn't too overcrowded and the meat doesn't give out water while it's frying. You just turn it over and make sure that both sides are nicely brown. If I'd have thought about it, I would probably have seasoned the meat, but I didn't think about it. I'll just put the seasoning in later, but it would be a good idea to put some salt and pepper in at this point. So now I'm just going to cut up those peppers. These ones are really big actually. I only needed 1.5. Probably 2 would be good for this amount of meat, 2 normal sized peppers I mean. I just cut them into chunks. They go really well with the tomatoes. They add a nice sweetness to the sauce. Yeah, I really like putting peppers in my tomato dishes. I think it adds a lot of flavour. When the chicken's all brown, you can put all of the chicken back in the pot and start adding the other ingredients. So the raw pepper, the garlic, onion and bacon mix, and then I'm adding 2 cans of chopped tomatoes. And I always like to get every last little bit of tomato out, so I'll fill up a can, just half a can of water, swirl it round one, pour it into the other, swirl it around, and into the pot it goes. So give it all a really good stir and then season with salt and pepper. I always feel like I use a lot of salt, but I'm not using any other kind of stock cubes or anything that has salt in it, and there's quite a lot of food in here, so it does need a fair amount of salt to enhance all of the flavours. But if you're worried, just put in a little bit and then you can test it before serving and add a little bit more at the end if you need to. It's always better to add it into the pot than onto your plate at the end, I find, because we tend to add too much salt, I think, if you're adding it onto the plate. So it finally stopped raining and I managed to get out into the little courtyard garden to pick some herbs to go in my Mediterranean chicken stew. So I've got oregano here and sage, I think. You can really use whichever herbs you enjoy. Parsley would be good too. You can use dried herbs if you don't have any fresh, that's fine. And so just chop them up finely, pop them in, give it a good stir, and then I'm going to cook this in the oven at 150 degrees Celsius fan for about an hour. Now, if you're worried about your chicken being cooked, I suggest you get a meat thermometer. They're not very expensive. You can get them quite cheaply on Amazon. Then you can just check the temperature of your meat, and I think chicken needs to be at 74 degrees Celsius to be cooked through. Now I had to pop out to a doctor's appointment, so this is a good 2 hours later. The chocolate and the butter have solidified a little bit. The mixture's quite thick, you'll see in a little while. But I'm adding the 4 eggs and giving it a really good stir to make sure there are no bits of eggs in the cake mixture, otherwise it'll feel like eating chocolatey scrambled eggs, which wouldn't be good. Really, really good stir. Then I'm going to add the sugar, 160 grams of sugar, and then followed by 110 grams of almond flour. Now this recipe is on my blog, www.candleinthekitchen.com. It's called Everyone's Favourite Allergy-Friendly Chocolate Cake, and it really is everyone's favourite, especially my husband's, which is why I'm making it today. But in the recipe in the blog, I think I just use normal all-purpose gluten-free flour. Today, to make it a little bit more special, I'm using almond flour, and I'm really glad I did. It turned out amazing. I always add a little bit of baking powder just to help the cake rise and have a lighter texture. The original recipe doesn't include baking powder, but I do like to add a little bit, and also salt. That brings out the flavour of the chocolate and gives it a kind of an almost caramel flavour. I love it. Now this is where you need to use some elbow grease and really get that cake mixture really well beaten together. And now I'm just going to pour it into a greased cake tin. Look at that. Doesn't that look amazing? I actually would love to eat that with a spoon. I don't know about baking it. I could eat it just like that. Anyway, this is going to go in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius fan for 18 minutes. It's very precise. 18 minutes is usually what is good for this cake. I will check it, and it might need a little bit longer. We'll see. So this is after 18 minutes. I'm just checking it. It's not quite done. I think it's because of the almond flour. I don't usually use almond flour, so maybe that's why it took a bit longer. So now I put it back in 5 minutes, and you can see here 23 minutes cooking. It looks perfect. So I'm just going to sprinkle it with icing sugar. You don't need to ice this cake because it's very sweet already. Just give it a good sprinkle with icing sugar, and it'll be ready for tonight. So here we are, the finished product, Mediterranean chicken stew and chocolate cake. So it was a pretty chaotic evening. We had friends over preparing for oral exams for the next day. We had food all over the place in the kitchen, things being cleared up, but we did manage to celebrate, and just look at that sparkler on the cake. It was a great little dinner to celebrate my husband's 49th birthday, and I hope you enjoyed cooking with me today, and that I gave you some inspiration of how to celebrate even on a rainy day and even with a really simple dinner. Thanks for watching. See you next time.